It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and I will be your host this morning, where we're going to cover a ton of topics. Looks like the wheels are coming off in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. And I got to tell you, things are looking dire indeed, not just domestically, but on a global scale. We are going to talk a little bit more about the Bundy Ranch and provide you with an update, because apparently the BLM slaughtered some cattle during the siege. It is illegal, unethical, cruel, and it was totally unnecessary. Where's PETA? The people eating tasty animals. People against or unethical treatment of animals, or whatever their logo stands for. Where's the progressive liberal group out there who would normally scream about animal rights? Where are the animal rights activists? Where's the government itself? If this was stewardship, the wreckage that the BLM left behind, if this is stewardship of land, frankly, we can do without it. Is this what we call good government? What I call this is tyranny, and you should too. Because the animals that they killed are a stark reminder that this is how your government, and this is the way in which your government plans to deal with humans who get in their way too. Think that's too harsh? Tough. You can go watch Kim Kardashian or Communist News Network, and they'll give you the soft-pedaled lies. Go right ahead. That's entirely up to you. Or you can stick with us this morning, and you can get yourself awakened and aware to the harsh realities of a harsh and cruel world, full of tyrants, misfits, and quite honestly, psychopaths. And by the way, Emery, I'm not the only psychopath out there. We all are in a certain way. Second topic we're going to talk about this morning is Ukraine and how it shows a world tired of tyranny. It's not just here domestically in the United States. It's not just in the Ukraine. It's not just in countries that are fighting for liberty and freedom. It's everywhere, folks. It is a planet tired of being held down under the thumbs of a small few oligarchy, or a small few oligarchies that apparently feel as if it's their right to dictate the rules to everyone else. Our third topic this morning will be government's irresponsible failure to protect the grid and their irresponsible failure towards us. We hear constantly that this massive surveillance and the total surveillance system of the dystopian world of 1984 is being done to protect us. It's for your safety, to, quote, keep you safe. And yet, last week, it emerged just from the internet, because the NSA completely missed it. So did the FBI. So did every other agency out there, the CIA, and all the rest of these three-letter curse words. They all missed the largest Al-Qaeda meeting in history. Trillions of dollars have been spent. Our privacy, our individual rights, our sovereignty as citizens diminished. All on claims that our government, which we now know can clearly, and we can clearly see has become our own worst enemy, will, quote, keep us safe. Yet they missed the largest gathering of real terrorists ever assembled. All that phone spying, all the internet listening, all the monitoring, all the hacking. And what do we have to show for it? They spend more time monitoring us than they do real enemies. We face a greater threat from our own national government, from Washington, D.C., and from your state capitals than we do from Islamic terrorists, because they can't even track them, these terrorist organizations, when they're in vast herds. Utterly shameless. Absolutely irresponsible. And it just goes to show you that all of it is a sham, designed to give you the false impression that government's doing this on your behalf. They're doing it for you instead of to you. Hello? See, the truth is they don't care about a collection of Al-Qaeda in Yemen. What they're really interested in is how can we watch Ms. McGillicuddy so that if she speaks out against our government, we can sick Lois Lerner and the IRS on her. Oh, say you're not satisfied? Say you want more for your money? Tell you what I'm going to do. Emails exposed today by finally, and by the way, not by any work from any of these traitors in Washington. Judicial Watch actually pulled them out of the hat. Emails show that Lois Lerner was in contact with the Department of Justice about criminally prosecuting tax-exempt groups as a way to punish them, silence them, and use them as an example to silence others. That, ladies and gentlemen, is tyranny. That is treason. You can call it anything else you want. You can try to be politically correct about it, or you can just call it what it is. Our fourth topic, the regulation nation. Only slaves live under overseers. Free men do not. And yet, we have an entire series of overseers who sit above us. You know who they are? You want me to name them? I'll give you just a sampling. Let's see. IRS, BLM, ATF, USDA, FCC, FTA, FTC, CIA, NSA, FBI, DHS, ICE, ICE, NPS. Need I go on? The list just goes on, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. They are willfully, intentionally, and maliciously purposed to injure American citizens, their families, your families, my family, and our businesses. Small businesses, not the megalithic corporations that own them and the decisions they make, that because they've paid for them. This is the traitor inside the gates syndrome. What do I mean by that? This is where the trusted insider opens the gates in the dark of night to allow entrance to the barbarians. Nothing can justify or rationalize or legitimize what our national government has become. Every branch, every agency, every member must go. We can no longer hope for political solutions, ladies and gentlemen. They are a dream of the past. When will America say enough is enough? Let's get into our first topic. The Bundy Ranch exposes the utter, absolute use of a government agency as a weapon against the citizenry. Because he is the sheep, or the cow, if you will, that lifted its head above the herd and questioned the tyranny. What tyranny, you say? Well, how about failure to have representation from the government that is taxing you and regulating you to death? We fought a revolutionary war over taxation without representation once before. Did we not? Of course we did. Yet I got to tell you, this example here, I keep hearing the mainstream media, the Ministry of Propaganda. I watched it on Fox the other night. I watched it on MSLSD. I watched it on Communist News Network. I watched it on CBS. I watched it on NBC. All of them do one thing. Even Hannity, who's had the Bundys on repeatedly, sitting there and cannot argue the point. None of them, whenever any one of their guests says, but this land is owned by the federal government. Stop. That's where the argument lies. You see, they all want to use the same excuse, but he's acting against the law. But not a single one of them, not one, has ever said, well, wait a second. A law passed outside of congressional authority, constitutional authority, a law which is passed, which is not on behalf of the Constitution, is no law at all. It is null and void. You can't have it two ways, folks. See, what they're giving you is not reporting, it's indoctrination. Like an article they posted out on CBS about a Long Island high school students, 2 of them, who were suspended indefinitely, removed, basically expelled. They didn't want to use the word expelled, for displaying a Confederate flag. CBS, Channel 2 in New York. Catherine Brown, here's how her report went. There is outrage and disgust on Long Island. The African American students who immediately saw it really exercised heroic restraint. And fortunately, a teacher immediately confiscated the flag and took the students out of the gym. That's the statement from Cregan, who is the principal over there at the school. Let me tell you something. First of all, the kids who had the flag have just the same right of free speech as anyone else. It's not a hate crime to be unpopular. It's not a hate crime to have an unpopular opinion. It's not a hate crime to utilize unpopular speech. We hear it all the time. I hear it out of Chuck Schumer. I hear it out of Bloomberg. I hear it out of Obama. I hear it out of Michelle. I hear it out of Boehner. I hear it out of Cantor. I hear it out of McCain. I hear it every day. Doesn't mean I have a right to silence them. This isn't reporting, ladies and gentlemen, what we're hearing from the mainstream media. This is indoctrination. Irrespective of what anyone else wants to believe and what the media would try to manipulate your mind with, the Civil War was about states' rights and federal government overreach, even back then. Just like the coming Civil War number 2 will be about. The flag is part of our history. And it symbolizes a group of states who didn't want to be bled dry by scurrilous politicians who played favorites, picked winners and losers, and enriched themselves at the expense of others, not just individuals, but entire states. Slavery was a secondary issue, and the southern states had already agreed to disband it voluntarily in the future. No one teaches that now. The fake 14th Amendment didn't free anyone. Actually, what it did was it enslaved us all. The truth is, this government is become the enemy of the state, the enemy of our state, the enemy of our state of being, the enemy of liberty, the enemy of freedom. When we talk about the example that's been given to us by the Bundys and the BLM's abuses of them, I got to tell you something. Why haven't any of these people in the mainstream media simply stated the obvious? When Nevada became a state and was no longer a territory, guess what? The land ceased to belong to the federal government. It's not federal government land. The federal government is prohibited by the Constitution from owning land. They own 10 square miles in Washington, D.C. And they own small and isolated locations, but only for the purposes of forts and other federal needs within the ownership of the states. 84% of Nevada is not owned by the federal government. 84% of Nevada plus the additional 16%, is owned by the state of Nevada. It's not federal government land. The BLM, while it's been given management, and it's been given management in an unauthorized fashion, where did we allow that to be looked upon and stated that an agency like the BLM has the rule of law or the right to make law? Rules that are created by illegitimate federal agencies that have no constitutional authority or justification for their existence are no more valid than if I declare something to be a brand new law. The law of Mike. Think anybody's going to follow that? Pshaw. The Constitution states very clearly that only Congress can make law. Rules and regulations that parade about as law that are passed by these unconstitutional agencies that are not fit or have authority to exist are created by a breached power of attorney, an invalid, illegal, null and void, self-created power of authority. And they have no consequence to either the Bundys, the state of Nevada, or the nation as a whole. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, that what we have is another agency, the Bureau of Land Management and the National Park Service, who are, for all intents and purposes, Gestapo. They are enforcers, the secret police, if you will. No different than KGB, no different than brown shirts. Am I demonizing them? Hell yeah, you bet I am. And the truth is, it's time that you began to demonize them exactly the same way for what they are. To murder these cattle, what was the purpose of that? First and foremost, it was cruel. I mean, what did the cattle do? The cattle are, they're dumb animals. All they know to do is eat and poop and occasionally procreate. That's it. What did these two prize bulls do? They didn't do anything. They were victims to punish Bundy. The BLM knew they were worth money. The BLM knew that they were valued by the family. So they injured them. They damaged them. They destroyed them. Then they went out on the property and they destroyed their water tanks. They punched holes in them. They destroyed the water lines themselves so that even if Bundy could get the cattle back onto the ground, he would not be able to retain them there because without water, the cattle would die. They destroyed the fences that were out there. They had complete control over the land for what, a week? 8-10 days? In 1 week, 10 days, whatever you want to call it, they caused more destruction out there than would have naturally occurred in 20 years. They justified spending $3 million on grazing fee to collect $1.1 million in grazing fees. Hello? They could have filed a lien on his ranch, but that wasn't good enough. They had to make an example to frighten the other sheep. They had to make an example to make sure that you knew no one can stand against us. They had no legal authority from the court. In fact, I don't know of any court order that would authorize them to commit the kind of damage they committed. I don't know how they took the concept that they had a court order to mean that they could kill the cattle. Why would you kill that which you're allegedly collecting to pay off the debt? Why would you kill the value? I mean, you don't, the IRS doesn't come and collect your money and then burn it, do they? They gave them the authority, an unconstitutional court gave them the authority to seize and impound Bundy's cattle, not seize and impound and destroy. One of the bulls was shot 5 times. Hello? 5 times? You see, the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that Bundy is just an example. And by the way, I talked to you about the Hagee Ranch. If you're not familiar with it, that's on you because you haven't done your research. But the Hagee Ranch has been fighting this same battle in U.S. versus Hagee. That's Hage. Now, I got to tell you, they've been fighting this for far longer even than Bundy. In fact, they know each other. It got so bad that the son of the original Wayne Hagee, he actually went to law school because he knew that was the only way he was ever going to be able to continue to fight the battle. He couldn't afford the lawyers. He couldn't afford the court case. So he went to law school. And guess what? He won repeatedly. Has the BLM ever paid that debt? No, they won't. He's won a $4 million plus settlement. They won't pay it. The judge did find that Hagee, the father, had in fact allowed his cattle to trespass on federal land. You know what he charged him for damages? $165.88. Not $1.1 million. $165.88. That's it. The truth of the matter is, the judge went so far as to state, and he's referred the people that were terrorizing the Hagees to the Justice Department for prosecution for their actions. Were they ever prosecuted? No. Nothing's happened. The Hagees were awarded $2.9 million because they took their water rights, and $1.4 million in statutory compensation for improvements made in connection with the revoked grazing permit. Including interest, the total award amounted to $14.2 million. That was 4 years ago. They've never gotten their money. They've never been paid. So how is it that this same kind of thing goes on and over and over and over? Well, in our next segment, we're going to talk about how it's not just here in America that we're getting sick and tired of tyranny, but it's on a global scale. The Ukraine shows us a world tired of tyranny, and according to at least one individual, may well be the beginnings of World War III. Edward Lucas makes it clear. We'll talk a little bit about it in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please stick with us and ride with us this morning. We're covering some important issues, and I think that they're valuable for you to be aware of. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org. We'll be right back.